Okay, so here's how you would download this spreadsheet, the Google spreadsheet, so that you can continue working on this on Excel. And it doesn't really have to be at this point, which is before you calculate averages, but definitely after we do averages and normalize the averages and do the standard deviation, then you would want to download the spreadsheet to Excel, because we're going to use this data that we calculate here on the standard deviation as an error bar on the graph that we're going to build. And this Google spreadsheet doesn't allow you to use each value that you calculate here as the error bars. It basically either just groups them or asks you want a percentage, you want a fixed number. So those are not really error bars that people use in scientific publications. They use the standard deviation as the error bars. All right, so here's how you download the spreadsheet. So you go like download, Microsoft Excel, and then in my case it gets saved down here, and I open it. And you probably don't see my new tab, but I will share with you the new screen. So now you see my Excel with like tiny numbers, which right now I'm actually going to keep them tiny. We don't even need to be able to see what these numbers are. We just need to be able to see which treatments are we talking about. Oh, I don't want to move them now. Place. Did I? Yeah, I cancel. Okay, good. All right, so from here, we're going to calculate the averages. And for your report, you do not enter any of these. For your report, you do not enter any of this gray stuff. You do not enter anything that's blue, not even this, not this. So what we're going to do is we're going to first make this table. And once we finish the table, then you're going to normalize it, which I'll explain to you what that means. So the next table down here is to normalize the data from the previous table. And so we're going to use this normalized data, so under this pink stuff, to build a graph. And so it'll be a graph of averages, normalized averages. And then this table here will be the standard deviation. That will be the calculation of, or we calculate the standard deviation, and you're going to use that as the error bars on our column graph. Okay, so let's start calculating the averages. So maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see better. I don't know how easy it is for you to see. That's not what I meant. All right, you zoom. Oh, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, see what happens. Okay, that's probably good enough. You tell me if it's not. Okay, we don't really care about these first three columns. So I'm going just to move over. Okay, here's the first average we're going to calculate. So if you see it says the average diffusion rate, there's going to be one number here, another one here, another one here. So it's going to be the average diffusion rate for the first 30 minutes of small molecule at 20 degrees Celsius. So the small molecule is that hydronium at 20 degrees Celsius. So it's these guys. And then you're going to say, but it's the diffusion rate between 0. So let's do this first one here. Between 0 and 30 minutes. So the first thing you see is that I don't actually see where is 0 and 30 minutes. Part of this problem is the fact that in Google Sheets, I fixed these columns so that I could scroll down here and these guys don't scroll. But then when we export, what happens is row number 5 here gets squished. So I need to expand row number 5. So what I did here, I just selected some cell, row number 4, and then I pushed my arrow down. And now see how this is 5. That's like really skinny. So I'm going to go format, row, height. So now it has a height of 1.5. Let's see if I did that height of 15. Okay, much better. So see, it was like so squished we couldn't read it. So now, all right. So we're going to do the average diffusion rate for 0 to 30 minutes for the hydronium at 20. So it is these numbers here, from here to here. And then you can go like this. Now, these guys here. So these are the data over which I want the average to be calculated. And then the result of calculating these averages, I want it to end up over here. All right, so the way I do that is I take my little bell, ding, 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 which is the equal. And I like to do averages. And actually, it has a bunch of different averages. Let me show you the ones it has. So see here on the left, that are like the most commonly used functions. I could go on insert function. Yeah, maybe I'll do that initially. And then later I'll show you that there's also a shortcut here on the left. But and then most recently, okay, average. Average works. And if it wasn't in the most recent, I would just type average, enter, and then it has a bunch of different ones. And if you don't know which one, you'd like click on one, and then it explains what it's doing. Average A, an average arithmetic, and then false and true. Okay, we are not doing any of that stuff for false and true. We're not doing logic statements. So we're just gonna do this one, plain old average. All right, then I'll hit enter. Oh, doesn't like it. So I just want the average. All right, so go to insert, function. I want the average. Okay, I double clicked now. And now Excel is saying, you want to average all of these numbers. You know, it just assumes because I want the average to end up here, maybe I'm averaging these things. And I go, no, Excel, thanks for the suggestion, but thanks, but no thanks. So I delete that. And I could either enter each number individually here, but that's way too much work. That's why we sorted earlier, because we're going to, instead of entering number 1 here, we're just going to enter the whole range, which was these guys here. And then I'm like, oh, I don't remember if 20 ends here. So I go like left, hydrometer, okay, ends up here. So these guys. And it says J7 colon J11. 7, oh, maybe you can move like this. Oh, and here we'll be able to see the rows. There you go. It goes from 7 to 11, and then you're like, okay, ready? And hit enter. Enter. We're done. Okay. So if you're like, okay, 7.8, what is that 7.8? Again, you can double click and it says it's the average between J7 colon J11. You're like, great. And you're like, hey, I have an idea. I don't want to do all that work here. Could I just drag right? You're like, yeah, you could. But remember, we need to check if Excel did what you wanted it to do. So then you go like, okay, my small molecule at 20 degrees are in rows 7 to 11. I'm going to write here 7 colon 11, just so that I remember whenever I'm checking if Excel did the right thing. And then here, the small at 56 is from 12 to 17. So I write that for myself up here. It's not really necessary. Oh, wait, it's from, what was it? 12 to 19. And then the large at 20, okay, the phenol red at 20 is between rows 19 and 23. 19 and 23. And the last one, larger 56, is from 24 to 29. 24 to 29. All right. So why did I do that? It's just so that when I click here, I see that it's actually doing the right thing. So I'm double clicking and it says in here, I calculated the average of J7 to J11. And I go, okay, the small at 20 is from 7 to 11. And the 0 to 30 is in column J. So that was right. And then I dragged right. So I click here. Let me double click. So it says, I calculated here the average of K7 to K11. Now it's like 7, 11 sounds familiar. Yeah, it's still the small at 20. Small at 20 are in 7 to 11. But then this is K. And like, oh, what is in column K? Oh, good. It is 30 to 60. Great. And you could check all of them and figure out, did they do the right thing? And then maybe you wonder, can I pull it down? I mean, you can, but we're going to see if it does the right thing. So now I pulled down this first one to check if it did the right thing. I would double click it. And it says it did the average of J8 to J12. Okay, so the J part is right because the 0 to 30 is in column J. The large to 20 is the problem because the large molecule at 20 degrees is not in rows 8 to 12. So the large at 20 degrees, as I put up here for me to cheat later, is in rows 19 to 23. So I'm just going to double click here. And then I'll do J19 column instead of J12, J23. And then that works because the J is the 0 to 30 and the 19 to 23 is the address of my large at 20, so 19 to 23. So J19, J23. Perfect. And I could scroll this right. Oh, it has to be like this. Okay, good. Scroll it right and then check. Is this one doing what it's supposed to do? Okay, this is column M. Column M, this one. It's 0 to 90. And you're like, oh, 0 to 90. Perfect. And okay, and it calculated M19 to M23. You're like, okay, the larger 20 is in 19 to 23. So great. So you will later fill this part out, but I'll move on to the next point. And maybe I will zoom in a little more. Actually, wait.